Lockdown pushback begins across the country. LA bans outdoor dining. Oregon wants you to call cops on COVID violator neighbors. The vaccine is coming soon. And when will the Trump legal team release the Kraken? Well, we're finally there. We are at the point here where it's clear to everybody that the government's plan to protect you from COVID is to just keep piling nonsensical rules atop nonsensical rules, to demand that you ignore the hypocrisy that is going on, to demand that you pretend that they've told you things in the past that were correct and true. Now it's what? They're going to fiddle with the numbers a little bit. You've got cases rising across the country. What's really the plan here? I think finally Americans are starting to see and they're starting to understand that this is not going to get better until we tell the government enough is enough. This isn't just going to go away. They're not going to give back your freedom. They're not going to allow you to live your life again. You may say, oh, Buck, but what about the vaccine? And to that, I would tell you, well, the vaccine isn't going to be the end of this for the government because the vaccine's not 100% effective. They're going to continue this on deep into 2021. You're hearing from Democrat politicians increasingly that even if it's 90% effective and even if 70 or 80% of the population gets it, even at that point, you're not 100% safe from the Rona. You could still get COVID-19, so you don't get to have your life back. You don't get to have back your freedom. And so then that raises some very interesting questions, doesn't it? When do we say mass compliance is our non-compliance is our only answer? When do we say we just simply refuse? Right? We have been complying for months and months, and now here we are seeing the sum total of what the lockdowners, the mask shamers, what have they pulled together for a program here as we're about to enter these winter months across the nation? What are they saying that they want to do to protect us? Right? What are the claims that they are making that will somehow make you safe? They don't have anything. They don't know. Other than what they've been doing, which hasn't been working. Or this is one of the great lies of the Biden campaign, that if only we listened to the scientists, everything would be so much better. The scientists that they're talking about have no idea how to make all of this better. All they do is keep repeating themselves. It's not changing anything. There is no perfect mass compliance. There is no perfect social distancing. The virus still continues to spread. In California, let's go through some of the examples here. In California over the weekend, they decided that they're locking down outdoor dining now for 3 weeks. So it was that you couldn't eat indoors. And there is a scientific basis, at least, for saying indoor transmission of a virus. Indoor transmission is a bigger risk. There's no evidence to suggest that outdoor transmission is a considerable enough risk to mandate the kinds of, or to necessitate the kinds of mandates that we've had. And yet they're doing it anyway. Why are they doing this? Because more restrictions on your life, more separation of you from the rest of your fellow human beings, including with prohibitions on Thanksgiving gatherings, that is the only answer they have. There's nothing else. Wash your hands, social distance, wear a mask. We've been doing that. It's not working. Mask compliance is higher than it's ever been. We've been social distancing for months. And yet the cases, now, they never said that it would go to zero, but the cases are spiking, folks. The numbers are jumping across the country. So why is that happening? Well, we're entering the winter season. There's a seasonality to these viruses. Isn't it fascinating that also we're led to believe that this virus, COVID-19, is somehow the one respiratory virus for which asymptomatic transmission is the main method of spread? This is what we're told now. It's the asymptomatic, or at least half of cases are from asymptomatic spread. They're just estimating that. And they're also ignoring the journal Nature published a Chinese study of thousands and thousands of people in Wuhan that found 300 individuals with asymptomatic cases. They tested over 1,100 of their close contacts. Not a single one of them had COVID-19. So 300 people, they test and traced everybody who lived with them and was around them. No transmission. But you won't hear about that. In fact, if I try to tell you about that on Facebook or Twitter, I'll get dinged, I'll get banned, I'll get throttled, whatever. It's just the truth. I'm just telling you things that are true. But now you're seeing that there's a totalitarian impulse at work here. Now you're understanding, I think the American people, if they weren't already seeing it, as I know a lot of you were, are understanding this is about so much more than just a virus. This is about our relationship with the government. This is about the ways that the state can control people and can transform society in the process. You don't think there are a lot of people that view that as an opportunity? You don't think there are a lot of people that view this as a chance to enact their policy whims? And also to create a perception among the American people that if they listen and do what they're told, they'll be safe and everything will be better. And the demagogues out there use the frightened mob to coerce and threaten and shame free thinkers into compliance. That's where we are. That's what's happened. Right. Now, remember, this is about government action and government mandates. Whatever you think you need to do to protect yourself, whether that's staying home, triple masking, wearing goggles, that's your call. You have plenty of information. There's so much knowledge and data out there right now about different ways you can try to mitigate the spread. Will that all work at the end of the day? Maybe, maybe not. But do what you can for yourself that you think, whatever you think is necessary. But that's not what's happening here. In the state of Oregon, the governor there, Kate Brown, is telling people that they should call the police on Thanksgiving gatherings that exceed whatever the allowable number of people is today. And remember, the number keeps changing. Is there any science to determine what that number is? No. They're just saying, yeah, we think this is the right number. Is there any science to determine that outdoor dining in California should be banned for 3 weeks? Can't sit outside and eat a meal at a restaurant. So you can't go to a takeout place and sit at their benches out front. No, that's too dangerous. Too dangerous for getting the Rona. This is what they're saying. And yet we know that the governors who push this stuff the most violate their own orders, and they don't care. They know that we know that this continues to play out in the press, where they've created a perception that Donald Trump is somehow responsible for all this. It's all Trump's fault, you see. And Trump supporters, they weren't wearing masks enough. Well, somehow here we are. Greater mask compliance than ever before. 80 to 90% nationwide for indoors and for most of the situations where we'd be required to wear them. And yet, does it really seem to be slowing down the caseload anywhere? Now, there's cases, there's positive tests, and then there's hospitalizations and deaths. These things all get commingled. And that's also not helpful to this conversation, to this discussion. But ultimately, we need to start boiling this down to very simple, very straightforward truths. Ultimately, this should be about things like, we are Americans. We want to celebrate Thanksgiving and be with our families. It could happen that you will get COVID-19 if you do that. It also could happen that you will get COVID-19 for walking into the elevator in your building or going to the grocery store. It could. And if that's not the case, then why are we wearing masks when we do those things? Obviously, it could happen. Living your life means you are at risk of getting this disease. The good news is that the chances of you surviving, in fact, the chances of you not even knowing you have it are very high. And the chances of you surviving if you're not a senior citizen with comorbidities is so good that you should have very little concern about this. You really should have no concern at all. But we have to start thinking about this in terms of freedom versus tyranny. Do you want the government to be able to tell you that your business has to be shut down because they say so? That's what they're doing. They don't point. There's no data. There's no answer to why they're doing this or even where they get the power. They've flipped quarantine, which has been for sick people, the sick, and made it a quarantine of all of society. And we call that lockdown. We accept this? I'm happy to see that in some states, in places like New York City even, there are people finally gathering to say no more, no more. Because they realize that if we go into a long winter and we allow these petty tyrants, if we allow these idiot bureaucrats to just make decisions and tweak things all along the way, to come up with whatever their policy feels like it should be today, they're going to destroy whole industries. They're going to dramatically increase depression and suicide and alcohol and drug abuse all throughout the winter for millions and millions and millions of people. And they don't really take all this stuff as seriously as they pretend to. We know they're hypocrites, whether it's Cuomo in New York or Newsom or Whitmer or Lori Lightfoot. Go down the list. Huge advocates for this. Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein. They break their own rules as soon as they think nobody's looking. Oh, but they're all so worried about this. Look at all of the members of Congress. Look at all these people who, in the case of Congress, you got a lot of people that are not just senior citizens. They're deep into their seniors. Nancy Pelosi's almost 80. Do you think they're living in fear? No, but they want you to live in fear. And they want to give government authorities the ability to make sure that even if you think that it's crazy, you still have to do this stuff. Deal with it. Bend the knee. We can either say no, or we can allow the tyranny to continue. Those are the options. Mass noncompliance, pushback from people in cities and states across the country to say, this is unacceptable. Law enforcement officers, and you're seeing more of this, who point out that they will not be a tool for this oppression. They're not going to do it. If people want to gather on Thanksgiving, this is still America. They're allowed to. We do not live, every aspect of our lives is not at the whim of government bureaucrats and elected officials. That's not what we signed up for, and that's not what our Constitution allows for. So have we finally understood here as a country? Are we finally waking up to this? There are leftists, there are libs who like this. I understand that. They're never going to change. They think they're in some great struggle by mask shaming the occasional person going for a jog outside by himself. They think they're saving millions of lives because they're morons. And they also believe that the planet is going to end unless we control CO2 emissions from 20% of the world's population. It's not going to happen, right? But they still believe these things. You are seeing this is increasingly like a religious cult. There is a COVID lockdown cult that has grown all across the country. People don't want to be wrong, so they won't admit they were wrong. And people also like to be told what to do. They like a government that's in charge of everything. It absolves them of responsibility for their own screw-ups, and it makes them feel like they're safe and fed and warm and everything's going to be fine. But that's not the truth. The government is doing a lot of damage with all of these mandates. The government is hurting people in the name of helping them. And it's not going to stop until we, the people, say, you're not allowed to do this anymore. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and you better pray this crime never happens to you because it goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they find your home's title online. They find your information. Then they use a quit claim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and take out loans against your home's equity. You often won't find out about this until you receive payment demands in the mail, perhaps even a foreclosure notice. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You have to go with the experts I trust at Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock will create a virtual barrier around your home's title. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, use the promo code RADIO to get 30 free days of protection. You can also check online to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection and to check to see if your home has already been breached by these cyber thieves. Check it out today, HomeTitleLock.com. What do I mean by pushing back? What does it sound like? What does it look like? Well, over the weekend, video was circulating from a business in Buffalo, New York, where a health inspector showed up at a private business operating on an anonymous tip about too many people inside without a mask on. And I got to tell you, I was so proud, yes, proud to be an American because of what the business owners said. They stood their ground, and the little health department bureaucrat realized, uh-oh, we got a problem here. Play it.
You have to leave. You have to leave. That's civil disobedience starts now.
Trespassing.
You're trespassing.
Doesn't matter. We have a right to be here.
Then get a warrant, dude. Go get a warrant. Go get a warrant. Yes, you do.
Come back with a warrant or leave.
Don't write the law.
So you can walk on any property with no warrant? Go get a warrant. You guys are breaking the law right now. You're breaking the law. Go outside. No, go on your phone outside. Go on your phone outside.
Where did you hear the report?
I haven't done
Okay,
anything.
people like if you want to break the law, dude. We would do it like if you break the law. Go leave.
Reported.
You know what? I don't know.
It's anonymous, right? It's
Yes,
anonymous.
But
It
it's
can't
a
be
legitimate
anonymous.
complaint.
You need to
It
know
can
your
be,
accuser. You need
that's
to know. It
not-
cannot
Okay,
be
wait,
anonymous.
you gotta go get a warrant.
It
Does
cannot
not
be
help health
anonymous.
department.
It
You
cannot be
gotta go
anonymous.
get a warrant.
You don't
You gotta go
break
get a
the
warrant.
policies. You
It's
don't
code
violate the
enforcement.
Constitution. It
This
does
isn't
not
the
matter.
same
You
as
don't
that.
circumvent or subvert the Constitution.
Call the news.
You don't get to subvert the Constitution. Go get a warrant. You see, the health department inspectors are used to just being able to show up and, do whatever they want, I guess. They had sheriff's deputies with them, but the business owner said, no, you're not allowed. We don't want you here. Not allowed here. Acting on an anonymous tip. Think about that. Just play this one out in your head. Any business that I don't like, if they ever gave me cold pizza at a place down the street, I can call in the health department and say, yeah, I saw too many people not social distancing inside. And then law enforcement's going to show up and they can go through the whole place and inspect the whole premises based on that. Not on, hey, they're selling drugs or no. I saw a lack of social distancing. I saw somebody without a mask on. What law is this based on? And, at some point you also get to the law of sanity. I don't care what these bureaucrats say. I don't care what the governor says about some BS executive order. We do not live in a totalitarian society where you can tell people how they can breathe, which is what they're doing. We do not live in a society where you can tell people they cannot see their loved ones on a holiday or any day for that matter. This is a time in our country when we need to start embracing at least the mentality, if not the form, of four-letter words expressed loudly and in unison toward government authorities who are trying this crap. I guess technically that's a four-letter word. Enough is enough. But you can either agree with that and start to take actions on that, or you can think that this is still all about Trump somehow. Really? There are lockdown protests going on in European countries. There was a lockdown protest here in New York City over the weekend. Thank God. We need a lot more of that. And it's about Trump still? Trump right now is focused on continuing to be president and fighting this legal battle in the courts for an election that's not over. These state and local COVID lockdowns are not about Republican or Democrat. It's about whether or not we live in a free society. It's about whether or not we're in a circumstance where we still get to determine our fates and our future. I'm still appalled, honestly, that we've gotten to this point. With so many people, the media, mass media, social media, we live in a time of mass hysteria and mass media, and the results are terrible. Because everyone's so frightened all the time now because of what they're seeing on their phones, on the news headlines and the stories, they don't stop to think, what am I gaining by listening to these people? Have they earned my trust? Have they earned the right to dictate every aspect of my life to me because they say they'll keep me safe? They're not going to keep you safe. It's all a lie. Am I exaggerating the desires of Democrats here? Am I pretending like they want things that they don't, or that they're holding positions that they really don't? Well, let's listen to one of the most powerful Democrats in the country right now explain what the new standard is for you getting your life back, getting any aspect of your life back right now during this time of the COVID pandemic. Here's Nancy Pelosi. Play 16.
Sources to make sure that the vaccine is distributed immediately, equitably, so that everyone has access to it. In that regard, though, for that to happen, the president must implement the Defense Production Act so that those companies, those entities that are used to this new technology that both Pfizer and Moderna have used can undertake making this vaccine more available, because we're going to need quite a bit for ourselves and for the world, because unless everyone is safe, as I said, no one is safe.
Unless everyone is safe, nobody. Did you hear that? Unless everyone is safe, no one is safe. What is that? Everyone is never going to be safe. Everyone is never going to be safe from this virus. They're never going to be safe in terms of overall health risks. And the government is in no position to destroy or eliminate those risks entirely. Right? The COVID-19 vaccine is not 100% perfect. Not 100% of people will get it. And there could be mutations of COVID in the future. So what I'm trying to tell you, which is the truth here, is that either we understand that there is allowable, acceptable risk in society that freedom necessitates, or we're living in some COVID health totalitarianism. That's it. And I think everybody intuitively understands that. They know that. But we've forgotten it during this period. We've reached this other place where we think, oh, well, I guess we'll wait until they tell us it's safe. That's never going to happen, really. Jim Jordan, one of my favorite members of Congress, I can say it. Jim Jordan is out there making the case. He's saying this is just, my friends, this is wrong. What's going on right now with these anti-Thanksgiving travel, not just the prohibitions on the gatherings, but the CDC saying don't go anywhere, don't travel, don't live your life. Who do they think they are? I mean, really, I want to say, who the bleep do they think they are? What is going on? This is the biggest challenge we face right now from a policy perspective. I know we still have this legal fight going on over the election, and I'm happy to see that the team is still digging in and going to get to the truth. We absolutely need answers. We need to use this process to the fullest possible extent to make sure that only legal and every legal ballot is counted. But in the meantime, we still got a big problem as a nation that's not going to get better anytime soon. This doesn't have a 3-week expiration or a 2-month expiration. This is going to go on deep into 2021. And that's why I'm happy that Jim Jordan at least is out there saying this is crazy. Play 8.
It's ridiculous. In Ohio, you now have to be in your home by 10 o'clock. In Pennsylvania, when you're in your home, you have to wear a mask. And in Vermont, when you're in your home, you don't have to wear a mask because you're not allowed to have friends over to your home. I mean, this has gotten so ridiculous. And we forget this is America. I mean, I go back to when the first lockdown happened, the Attorney General of the United States sent out a memo to all U.S. attorneys. This is back in April of this year. Sent out a memo to all U.S. attorneys. A lot of important things he discussed in there, but near the end of the memo, he had a great line. He said, the Constitution is not suspended during a crisis. And amen to that. And we need to remember that. In fact, I would argue the Constitution is most important when you're dealing with something unique, something big like this. So this is as wrong as it gets. Yeah.
It's as wrong as it gets. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. I wish that Trump would use the megaphone a bit more on this issue. I know he's focused in on the election, but this really matters. They used COVID panic to change the whole election system. They used the fear that the public had around COVID, the irrational level of fear, to make these very changes so that they could try all the shenanigans, so they could try the steal in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Georgia. It was all based in COVID. I've been trying to tell people all along, stop with the Hunter Biden, start focusing on COVID and this need that we have to reestablish freedoms as Americans and to deal with this this insanity that's going on. Oh no, we're gonna just wait for the Durham probe. That's gonna save us all. The Durham probe, any minute now, is gonna sweep in there like the cavalry at the end of an old Western. I mean, it's just not gonna happen. But they got away with it. They got away with misrepresenting this and creating a narrative that was used against Trump. I mean, here's Joe Scarborough just straight up saying Trump is responsible for all the people who have died of this. Play 7.
I don't know if it matters to the Republicans at all, but that the backdrop to this is very bad short-term news on the coronavirus and the numbers surging all over the place, and the president tweeting all weekend long about himself and about the election he wants to steal. That's who they're aligning with.
They don't care about all the people dying.
So there was
They really, because if they did, they would let Joe Biden start working his transition so they could start getting the vaccines ready, and they can make up a plan to distribute vaccines from across the country to 300 million people to get the economy started again. To get the economy started again, but they don't care. This is all about Donald Trump. People calling into Rush Limbaugh saying they're ready to die for Donald Trump. Really? Is this Jonestown?
Well, people are dying.
Really? Yeah. You don't have to say you're willing to die for Donald Trump, because hundreds of thousands of people already have died because of Donald Trump, and it's only going to get worse.
I mean, the TV executives who put this more on Scarborough and his wife after he left his other family and she left her family because they're working together, and that put him on air so he can say things like the president's responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths. How is it possible to be such an idiot? I mean, to really have such either low intellectual capacity or to be of such low character that you'll say things that are so obviously not true, not fair, inaccurate. How many deaths would there have been if Joe Biden were the president during this? Let's just deal with this for a second. How many deaths would there be if Joe Biden were in charge? Can they give us an estimate? I would have worn a mask. I would have hid, no joke, in the basement with my mask on, wearing a mask. Here you go. Here's the guy that would have been the great savior. He would have saved 250,000 lives if only he had been in charge the last 11 months or so. Here's Joe Biden. Play clip 1.
They talked about that in some detail. Thirdly, we discussed the need to help states with Title 32 funding for the National Guard. That's a fancy way of saying governors need to be able to get funding when they need to bring their National Guard into play. And National Guards are going to have to play this. It costs a lot of money.
It's another fancy way. The government is, a thing with the. Oh yeah, he's a genius. He would have had great leadership. Would have listened to the science. He would have had to listen to the science, I suppose, in the beginning when Fauci was saying, don't wear a mask, which we all know he said. I'll probably get censored for that. I'm getting dinged on Facebook for telling you things that are factually accurate now. But they have fact checkers say that it lacks context. That's the new game. Lacks context is a way of saying, I don't like these facts you're presenting, and I have other facts that I like better, so I'm going to say this lacks context and therefore is misleading. This is the little totalitarian censorship game that the biggest and most powerful companies in the world right now are playing on behalf of the collectivists, on behalf of the left. That's what's going on. That's right, though. Put Joe Biden in charge. All of our problems would just melt away. I mean, Scarborough here saying that we don't care about people dying. No, we very much care about people dying, but they're the ones who are claiming that everything will be better if we just do what they say. We've been doing what they say. That's what has been happening. We've been listening to them. We've been listening to the science. All the data supports this. All the evidence we have supports this. And they just don't want to ever face the reality that they've been spewing lies this whole time. All we have to do is the following and the virus will go away. And it's on us. And we're going to save ourselves if we just do the right thing. What are they toddlers? Are they repeating some song they were taught at a day camp for 10-year-olds? Well, who could believe this stuff? All we have to do is wash our hands and wear a cotton mask and everything's going to be fine. They said Trump's responsible for 250,000 deaths. That's what Scarborough and his wife are saying. So what exactly am I missing here? He's responsible for all the deaths. So clearly we would have 0 deaths, unlike Europe and all these other countries. 0 deaths from this, if only we'd listened to Fauci. This is idiocy. This is intellectually indefensible, but their hatred of Trump clouds everything else. This isn't even about Trump for me. That's why I'm so dug in on this issue. It's not about Trump. It's about the country. And it's about whether or not people believe that we are a free people or not. They have taken away our freedoms. They have violated the Constitution. You either have a problem with that or you don't.
But we do have some realities that are stark. Number one, the weather is colder. We're living a lot more of our lives indoors. There's real pandemic fatigue and a lot of transmission behind private doors. So we have surgically gone after cutting indoor dining at 10 p.m., lowering indoor gathering limits to 10 people. We've amped up enforcement, but there is only so much you can do. So we're pleading with people, keep Thanksgiving really small, immediate family, don't travel, and don't let your guard down just because you're at home.
Yeah, we just heard that police chief say he's not going to enforce these new rules. Anything you can do about that?
Listen, I heard him say I don't want to ruin anyone's Thanksgiving, and that gentleman, I believe, is an outlier. What would really ruin your Thanksgiving if somebody gets sick and God forbid, dies. So we got to do everything we can, but there's a huge amount of burden here on personal responsibility and doing the right thing.
The governor of New Jersey just falls back on the same thing every time. Do what we say or you'll die. Meanwhile, doing what they say doesn't prevent the spread of the virus. I did indoor dining over the weekend in New York City. Let me explain to you a little bit of what that's like. With my brother, who has moved to Texas and loves it, by the way. So there's that. He's in Austin. So KLBJ fam, you've got a Sexton in your midst now. He absolutely loves it there. But he was visiting for the holidays, and we went out to dinner. We had a bro dinner, and we arrive at the restaurant, and we have to wait outside. So we're waiting. So there's about 20 people that we're all waiting for tables at this restaurant. We're all waited up, but we're really kind of waiting in this confined area. We all have our masks on, but it is outdoors. This is after they take our temperature. Now, just as a reminder, you often can have COVID and not run a temperature, but they take your temperature. Okay, so they say that's a little precaution. But we're all standing outdoors without masks on. And then we all go inside and sit. I'm sorry, with masks on. And then we all go inside and take our masks off and sit in an enclosed room together. What are we doing? Who wants to? And these are the rules. We're doing this, and we don't touch menus. Oh, because if we touch menus, that's how we're all going to get sick. So we have to do this little virtual menu thing. Well, are these restrictions good enough that it's safe or not? Because if they're good enough, why are we going to shut down indoor dining? You could see you could have endless iterations of this. Do a little more, a little more restriction, a little bit more the government telling you what's acceptable. You can't go out and go to the grocery store twice a week. You got to go once a week. Maybe once every other week. Do you want to die? Do what we say, you're going to die. This is what they're telling you. I mean, I'm not making this up. I'm playing the clips for you. You can hear government officials saying this. Do what we say, you're going to die. Meanwhile, we're doing what they say, and the virus is spreading all over the place. And a vast majority of people who get this, that doesn't even begin to cover it. Less than 1% of people who get this actually die from it. So they act like if you get this, it's a death sentence, and that's crazy. But that's the way to keep people in fear. That's the way to have people who are willing to obey this stuff. They want to send people in to arrest you for having folks in your home over a holiday. That's the plan, right? And Pelosi said it very well. Nobody is safe until everybody is safe. The government will let you know when there's 100% safety from this virus. Until then, you do what the government says or you're killing people. This is the standard they've set up. You see it. You see it happening all over the place. The only reason they don't tell us all you cannot leave your homes on pain of arrest is that then finally I think people would say, hold on a second. That's too far. That's not an acceptable level of lockdown, but we should be at that mentality. We should have been at that a long time ago. Governor Abbott of Texas, who's been okay on COVID. Not great. Not great. But at least he understands that what the governor of Oregon is saying, that you should call the police on your neighbors for gathering for Thanksgiving. Think about how toxic this is going to be, because people will do it. There are lunatics out there who will do this. They'll say, oh, gosh, you're putting me at risk. My mask protects me. Your mask protects you. You know, nonsense like that. Play 18.
Governor, before you go, the governor of Oregon, a woman by the name of Kate Brown, says, hey, if you see anybody breaking any of our state suggestions and guidelines, call the cops. Is that the way they should handle that? Call the cops if you see somebody walking around with no mask?
I got to tell you, I think they may have some Fourth Amendment-based challenges there, but also I have to point out the irony. If I understand correctly, Oregon just legalized heroin and maybe cocaine.
Yes.
And so it's okay to have heroin and cocaine, but not turkey for Thanksgiving. That is un-American. It just does not make sense.
The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. Gathering with your family on Thanksgiving is not probable cause of the commission of any crime. This is unconstitutional. They do not have the right to do this. Don't let them continue to threaten you and to create all this fear so that you forget that what they're doing is wrong. These are government powers that are undermining the very basis for government's authority, which comes from the Constitution. That's what's happening right now all across America.